So let me ask you a question that one of my absolute favorite YouTube channels in personal finance, Marco Whiteboard Finance, recently asked his subscribers a couple of days ago. When you're filling up your car, or you're shopping for groceries, or you're even in McDonald's ordering a Big Mac meal, do you really feel 9.4% inflation at the moment? Or is it more? Chances are it's the latter, because the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is heavily manipulated, and because of that, they're not telling us the real numbers. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Lewis back again with another video, and today it is about time that we spoke about inflation, that is the real rate of inflation, because it's not 9.4% like the Consumer Price Index or the CPI says it is here in the UK, and it is most definitely not the 9.1% that we are being told it is in the US. This is a very important video, and it should show you that inflation isn't just about nostalgia. It's not about the good old days when $1 used to fill you up with enough sugar for an entire week and now barely buys you one Kit Kat. It's a real problem. But before we get into all of that, there's a very real chance that you are new here, and if you are, then welcome to Every Quid. Over here we talk all things personal finance, so if you want to learn a little bit more about your money and live a more financially stress-free life, then do consider subscribing to the channel. And if you feel like that you'll learn something from this video and that others will, do give it a thumbs up so that the almighty algorithm can bless this video and get it out to as many people as possible. I've also got some fantastic referral links with the likes of Chip and Lightyear, not sponsored, UK only, where you can get yourself some cash and even some free stocks down below in the description, so do go and check those out if you'd like. Okay, so first of all, what is CPI? So this is the statistical index that governments use to inform their people how inflation is going at any given moment. These figures are released monthly. The massive problem with this system, however, is that it's heavily manipulated. As long as you can make statistics look as good as you can, you will, right? Anyone can manipulate numbers if they know what they're doing. All you've got to do is look to history to see this is true. Just look at how many companies in the history of the stock market have made billions of dollars in market cap, and investors buying their stock because of it, massively pumping up the price, only for it to come out that they literally made nothing and are nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. Here's looking at you, pets.com, and every single SPAC ever. Anyway, so CPI is just a basket of goods and services that can be changed at any time. It literally assumes that every single person that lives in any one country is the exact same. Like this is some sort of dystopian society that only buys bread, milk, and Netflix subscriptions. And then, of course, they'll take all of the individual inflation numbers of each item within the basket and provide an average of all of them, thus giving the total percentage increase of inflation. Another problem with this is that the basket changes all of the time, and the majority of it makes very little sense in describing the average consumer. For instance, here in the UK, the ONS, or the Office for National Statistics, can change this whenever they like to keep us in the dark over the real rate of inflation. Looking at the most recent section on the changes on the ONS's website, they've added frozen Yorkshire puddings, as there is currently no representative frozen cereal item in the index. What? When on earth has frozen cereal ever been a thing? They've also added a pet collar to represent the increased spending on pet accessories because of the increased overall ownership of pets since the pandemic. So you see how bad this system actually is? For some reason, they feel the need to have a representation of frozen cereal, which is literally not a thing, so they add in Yorkshire puddings. And just because people have begun to own pets more since the pandemic started, they chuck a pet collar in there as a manner to represent all things pet accessories. But let's not forget the fact that the majority of pet accessories costs so much more than what a collar does, like bowls, beds, cat trees, toys, etc. This system is ridiculous. Oh, but wait, they've also added in meat-free sausages to the basket recently. This is to reflect the expanded range of free-from items in grocery stores and the overall growth of vegan and vegetarianism. It's simply way too simplistic at times and completely nonsensical at other times. Here's what is taken into consideration when it comes to CPI from the ONS, and it's farcical. Where's the household essentials such as gas, electricity, council tax, water, rent or mortgage payments, fuel, internet? Not included. According to the ONS, it's acceptable to not include any of these when it comes to measuring the rate of inflation. Why? Because people would be running for the hills. Maybe something like fuel is under transport though, I hear you asking. No, it's not. By their own admission, the ONS says that they don't include fuel in the transport section of the Consumer Price Index. It's completely separate. But they'll still blame the massive fuel inflation on why the transport sector of this basket has risen by 15.2% in June. Okay, so now that we know to almost completely ignore the CPI because it's based on a basket of nothingness, what is the actual rate of inflation right now in the UK and the US? Unsurprisingly, when I was researching for this video, I couldn't really find anything for the real rate of inflation in the UK. However, a very simple Google search of anything followed by the word inflation will tell you the full story. And almost hilariously and somewhat ironically, it all goes back to the ONS's website, the same website that tells you inflation is currently at 9.4%. But let's take away the frozen Yorkshire puddings and pet collars for a second and take into consideration all of the actual household essentials that we are spending our money on, because they're all going up like crazy over the last 12 months. Over the past 12 months, on average, mortgage interest, why can't I say mortgage? I can't say mortgage apparently. Mortgage. Over the past 12 months, on average, mortgage interest payments have risen to 9.3%. Rent has apparently only increased 3%. Fuel has risen 44.4%. Food and catering has risen to 9.5%. Electricity has risen 53.5%. Gas has almost doubled, rising to a monstrous 98.5%, and it will climb again in October when the energy price cap rises again. Water has increased 3.8%. Council tax is up 3.4%. Although like rent and mortgage payments, that heavily depends on where you live and can drastically change based on location. And clothing and footwear has risen to 0.43%. Apparently now is a good time to buy clothes. And that's not even taking into consideration broadband and internet, which many now feel is a household essential in the 21st century. We all live in a much more connected world now more than ever in 2022. According to which, in January of this year, the rise was about 9% on average. There's actually not a separate sector for broadband inflation on the ONS's website, so unfortunately I've had to base my number on broadband on a very loose and outdated article. However, either way, thanks to which for letting us know about that one. If we take all of these numbers of household essentials and calculate the average inflation rate of all of them, the true and real rate of inflation is much higher than 9.4%. For those who rent, the real rate of inflation is 25.05%. For those who pay a mortgage, it's 25.75%. And this is just the average. I'd make a very good bet on that for a family of 4 who live in the centre of London. It's probably much more than that. Now granted, these are just for those household essentials, but when we have to pay for all of those essentials, isn't this number all that really matters? And even if I took into consideration things like subscription services such as Netflix, Spotify and Disney+, it'd be even higher, as those companies have recently increased their prices, some quite dramatically. Now in the US, it's actually a lot easier to gauge the real rate of inflation of real household essentials thanks to a website called shadowstats.com. They take all of the actual inflation figures from the US from the early 1980s to today and calculate just how much inflation has actually risen, as opposed to what their version of the ONS, the Bureau of Labour Statistics, or BNS for short, says. While the headline number of the BNS is usually seasonally adjusted month to month like ours is in the UK, the formal CPI is reported on a non-seasonally adjusted basis, the real way of living, because we still have to pay for all of those household essentials no matter what the season is. The annual inflation is then measured in terms of a year-to-year percentage change in the price index. The real rate of inflation in the US is looking more like 17.3%. We're beating the US at something, woohoo! And that's not taking into consideration just the household essentials. I can guarantee that if it did, it'd probably be much higher. If you do live in the US and want to delve into this much more, I highly recommend and encourage you to watch Marco Whiteboard Finance's video on this, which I'll link down below in the description. It is a highly important one, and that guy is an absolute mastermind of finance and is one of the realest YouTubers in this space. You've got to go and watch him. So how the hell do we beat inflation, especially when it's so high? Well, firstly, the most important thing to know is to come to terms with the fact that the overwhelming majority of us, even those of us who are investing, won't beat inflation this year. Unless you pile all of your money into Ethereum over the past month, apparently, which is incredibly risky to do, as can be seen from its yearly performance so far. Or if you're just Warren Buffett, or Ray Dalio. Apparently Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio is up about 33% year to date so far. How does the guy do it? Ray, give me a call, mate. However, it's also important to note that this level of inflation is not normal. It will not be like this forever as much as it feels like it right now. The Bank of England's yearly target is to keep inflation within 2%, within the CPI that is. So realistically, it's probably around 5 to 7% if we base it on the real numbers, on those actual essentials. This is why investing on a consistent monthly or yearly basis and lowering the prices that you pay for essentials on a yearly basis is so important. This is when I once again get on my little soapbox about investing rather than saving. If you are saving money just for the sake of saving because you think cash is safe, it's just not. It's actually even more riskier than choosing not to invest, especially right now. We have seen here in this video the true effects of what inflation can do to our money and is doing to our money. Your cash savings of 1.5% at a maximum in an easy access savings account are absolutely murdering you. In a fixed term savings account, it's about 3 to 5% for a couple of years, which is actually even more dangerous because it programs you to think that that's a really good return when it just isn't, even if you see what the stock market has done for your money for the past 3 to 5 years instead. Investing is where we can truly beat inflation over the long term. Now, over the last 30 years, from 1992 to now, God, I'm old, I was born in 1989, the S&P 500 has averaged a compounded annual return of 9.88%. In monetary numbers, that means a $10,000 investment in 1992 would now be worth $191,416. In UK money, that is just shy of £160,000. That's not even taking into consideration any dividends that could be reinvested, such as what you might earn from the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF in the UK, named VUSA, or the same one that you can get in the US, which is named VOO. In a static savings account with a 3% return, that $10,000 would now only be worth $24,568. You've barely doubled your money over 30 years. Meanwhile, the purchasing power of your dollar over the past 30 years has eroded by 2.16% on average per year. Going back to that 10K, when invested and we adjust for inflation, you'd walk away with a real return of your own money of $100,821. When saved, you'd only have $12,940. You've barely made $3,000 in 30 years saving. Please understand this right now. Please understand this. Investing over saving in the long term. Please. Don't kill yourself over here. It's not just a bad throwaway little thing to say, investing, I'll do it later. Think back to how much inflation really is eating away at your income right now. The thought of investing later rather than now is downright dangerous. Almost as dangerous as thinking that inflation is only at 9.4%. And then, like I said before, it truly pays to review and readjust what you're paying for those essentials on a yearly basis. This is what I do every January or February. It's pretty much once the New Year sales kick in, where companies are vying for new customers and therefore lower the prices of contracts for the next year. Now granted, this year it's been impossible to do this for gas and electricity providers, and it's also very difficult to do this for council tax here in the UK unless you literally move to a cheaper council tax area, which means uprooting and moving halfway across the country potentially. The same can be said for water bills, as only a few companies here in the UK have monopolised this over the entire country. However, in a normal year, most utilities and internet bills etc. can be cut, and quite dramatically. Those who were able to lock in a fixed rate contract on gas and electricity a couple of years ago will be much better off than those who are on variable rates. The same can be said for those subscriptions that keep piling up each year. A few months ago, Netflix hiked their prices and I was on the highest tier just so I could watch Stranger Things in 4K. Before the hike, I was paying $13.99 a month for this, but I wasn't going to pay $15.99 a month for it. So I went down a tier to only pay $10.99 a month. Overall, this is a saving of just under 21.5% or £36 a year. Not a lot, but as I say on here, every quid counts. So to conclude, it all comes down to that question that I asked you at the start of this video. When you're on your weekly grocery shop, or when you go to fill up the car or pay the bill for the gas and electricity, do you really feel a 9.4% increase? Or do you feel the 25% increase that I mentioned? What about my friends who subscribe to the channel and watch my videos that live in places like London or New York? Let me know in the comments down below exactly how much inflation are you feeling. As always, I really hope that you found this video helpful. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing for more money related content. I post videos every Monday and Friday at 6:30 PM UK time, so stick around for all of that in the future. Also, make sure to follow me on all of my socials for even more. Grab your free money and stocks using some of the links down below. And remember, until next time, every quid counts. See you soon.